continuation of the annual meeting. Roll call.
Okay, Gary Boren.
Here.
Newton Clark.
Here.
Russ Collins.
Here.
Lee Gunn. Here. Jennifer Hall. Here. Roger Hewitt. John Heapja. Joe Moenstein. John Moa. Keith Orr.
Here.
Sandy Smith. Here. John Hewitt.
Here.
We have a quorum.
And the other two Johns are here.
Okay.
On their way. All right.
All three
there's-
Johns.
All the Johns are here.
And
And then Roger. All right, we actually only have one order of business, and that is the continuation of the annual meeting of July 1st, where we did not elect all of our officers. I'm not a parliamentarian, so I'm going to just assume that we'll start with a clean slate, as if there are no nominations on the table at all, unless there are any objections. All right, seeing none, let's start with treasurer. Do we have any nominations? Sandy?
I would like to nominate for treasurer Russ Collins.
I'd like to second
And
that.
second by Roger Hewitt. Excellent. Any other nominations? Nominations are closed. All in favor, Russ Collins?
Aye.
All opposed? I would say that it's unanimous. Our new treasurer.
Thank you.
Bravo.
Thank you very much.
Chairperson, nominations are open.
I'd like to nominate John Split.
Support.
Support? Any other nominations? Seeing none, all in favor of John Split?
Aye.
All opposed? Unanimous. John Split. So I'll be handing this over as soon as I do the last order of business, move to adjourn. Do I hear a motion?
So moved.
And a second by Roger. All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? Here you go.
Thank you very much.
Elected officers.
I'm sorry we adjourned because I wanted to commend the chair on the excellent work.
How long did that take?
I think you got about a minute and a half.
There we go.
Bright future.
Efficiency, that's what it's about.
Another roll.
I would be delighted. Roll call. Gary Boren.
Here.
Newton Clark. Here. Russ Collins.
Here.
Lee Gunn. Here. Jennifer Hall. Here. Roger Hewitt.
Here.
John Heapja.
Here.
Joe Moenstein. John Moa.
Here.
Keith Orr.
Here.
Sandy Smith.
Here.
John Split.
Here.
We have a quorum.
Our second item of business is audience participation. We have a maximum of 4 slots available, 4 minutes apiece. And our first speaker is Michael Haller from Walbridge.
I want to tell you I'm a big proponent of lean processes, and the meeting you just conducted is the most impressive lean process I've ever seen. I'm really not here as with Walbridge. I'm here as a member of the community. I've been a homeowner and lived in Ann Arbor for a little over 18 years, live in Burns Park. And really that's why I'm here. I want to let you know, first of all, that your executive director, Susan, did a great job, and Walbridge did come in. I'm one of the owners of Walbridge, and we did come in. We were disappointed in not making the short list on the 5th Street parking deck, but she spent time with us. The consultant spent time with us. We put that behind us. I've been married 33 years. If my wife and I didn't put certain things behind us, I never would have made the 33 years. So we put that issue behind us, and now we're moving forward. I've been in the construction business over 36 years. I'm a registered professional engineer, built probably a dozen parking decks, built lots of buildings all over the United States. I've come to the conclusion that in our world today, members of the community have to offer their services. I want you to know I'm offering my services in any of the endeavors that this group takes on for the community. I'm more than willing to offer my personal time to help. If there's something you could use my expertise for, I'm more than willing to provide it. Live over in Burns Park. I'm in the phone book. Susan's got my contact information. I'm here to help as a member of the community. The other things I wanted to do is I wanted to congratulate you on your decision moving forward on the 5th Street parking deck. It's important to the community. I try to park downtown every once in a while. I'm probably illegally parked right now. Set that aside. I threw a bunch of money in your meter, so I'm trying to help. But basically, congratulate you. Big step in this long process that you're going through. The other thing I wanted to do, the last thing, is validate I believe your decision to competitively bid the trade packages once you get to that point, okay? It is absolutely the right thing to do. When you're going to, now I'm going to provide some of my expertise and some of my wisdom. You're very fortunate in that you're in a geographical area that has very competent trade contractors in all the different disciplines, whether it be concrete work, mechanical work, electrical work. And that's a big benefit you have because that doesn't exist all over the United States, number one. Number two, you're in an extremely competitive market. All of you somehow touch the current economic conditions, some more so than others, but it is horrific out there. In the state of Michigan, the construction market has been hit extremely hard like every other business, auto, etc. And there's a number of very competent contractors who are very excited, their employees are very excited that this opportunity exists, and rather than forcing our people to travel outside the great state of Michigan, they may actually have an opportunity to work in the great state of Michigan. So I want to validate that decision and make sure that you realize you will get the most innovative, you will get the most cost-effective responses, you'll get the most value, which I know you want to get for the community, for the money that will be spent, and you'll do that by the competitive bidding process. So I'm glad you made that decision, and I hope you stay with that decision as you move forward. Thank you very much. And again, I want to reaffirm, I am here to help if I can ever offer any services to this group. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Mike Ortley, Carl Walker, did you want to speak or?
Well, no, I just, if you need it.
Okay, no, I think I'll wait I'll wait to get a report from you. Thank you. Next item of business is a report from city boards and commissions. Ray Detter from the Downtown Area Citizens Advisory Council.
And I want to continue that very positive approach to the whole nature of what it is that we're doing right now. Last night, the Citizens Council met, and they asked me to reaffirm our support for the Fifth Avenue, that is the library lot parking structure, as well as the Fifth Avenue and Division Street improvements. And as you know, I mean, we've been a part of this for 15 years, ever since the Lukenbach-Ziegelman sort of plan with regard to the nature of what should happen on that site. And we've been a part of all the public process that has happened over the course of time to bring it to the point where it is now. And what we've always expected, that this would be a part of an overall plan for transportation and parking in the downtown. It isn't just one lot, one underground lot, but there's a larger picture here. And let's remember that we supported also additional parking. We would have had even more on that particular site, and we still feel that would have been a desirable direction. But we did that on the condition, really, that we hope that there will be no more freestanding parking structures built in the downtown area, because we will have in place a transportation program that won't require those parking structures to be located. And any future parking that's built in the downtown in relationship to private needs, hopefully will be built on site if necessary, and we would desire it to be underground, if that were at all possible. In the case of the above ground portion of the Fifth Avenue site, we still are in the same position we've always been in. We still strongly support residential development on that site. It's always been our position is we want the downtown to be vital. We want the downtown to be a place that can operate on its own in terms of its residential base, and even though things are not so good right now, in 3 years when work gets started on that, if it's 3 years, by then the conditions would have changed, and hopefully, once again, residential will be a major commitment that we have for that location. 2 other items, very briefly. I look forward to the meeting tonight from 7 o'clock to 9 o'clock at the Carytown Concert House. Tonight is going to be the presentation of the design guidelines for the A2D2 process, and those will be then approved in October at the same time that the zoning is approved. They will be approved on the same night with 2 different hearings on both of those particular issues. We plan to be on both of those. And this, again, is the culmination of 5 years of hard work and a very vigorous public process to get us here. And the CAC supports the design review process. We support the standards. And we do support a process which is now one which is a compulsory requirement with regard to going through the process, but a voluntary approach to the whole nature of following the conclusions of that particular process. And we support a strong commitment to design which reflects our commitment to the pedestrian experience. and avoidance of negative impacts upon historical buildings and residential units downtown. One final comment, and I'll introduce this, I'll probably be bringing it up again at the next meeting, and that has to do with a year and a half ago, we worked very hard to stop the closing off of the alley, which is on Liberty Street between State and Division. At that particular point, McKinley, who owns a portion of the condo next door, agreement with the city with regard to the operation of Liberty Square, backed off on what they were going to do, closing it off, and said, no, the best idea is to keep that alley open. In fact, that alley is provided to keep that open in the condo agreements of that building as a joint operation. Currently, you may have noticed, that there are ballards which have been set up on Liberty Street to close off that alley. And we will be approaching this with the idea of getting those ballards out of there. And once again, going to a program that comes from us, all of the community, because we own half of that alley, essentially. And that alley is to be kept open for both vehicular traffic, emergency, and also for pedestrians. Not with one person controlling it. And of course, we're very concerned because from the other side on Washington Street, trucks then, if you have ballards up on that one end, would then have to come in there to service it and also to take out garbage. There are 30 units of housing in those locations at the other end, those apartments. You're going to have a major negative impact upon that, and we want to see that stop, and I'll be back again on this particular issue. Thanks.
Thank you. Next item, approval of minutes. First, the minutes from the July 1st, 2009 regular board meeting. Are there any corrections to the minutes?
I'll move approval.
Second.
Moved by Lee, seconded by Roger. All in favor of approving the minutes, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed?
I'll abstain.
Newcomb abstained. The 2009 annual meeting of the same date, July 1st. Any corrections to those minutes? Would somebody like to move approval? John Mowat, second.
I'll second.
Seconded by Roger. All in favor of approving the minutes of the annual meeting on July 1st? Say aye.
Aye.
Newcomb abstains. And finally, our August 19th, 2009 special DDA board meeting. Are there any corrections to those minutes?
I'll move approval of the August 19th meeting.
Moved by Lee. Is there a second?
Second.
Second by Roger. All in favor of approving those minutes, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Those minutes are approved. Item number 6 is other DDA business matters, a resolution to thank Renee Greff. Would somebody like to move adoption of that resolution? Jennifer, is there a second?
Support.
Seconded by Sandy. Would you kind enough to read the resolution?
Sure, I'd be happy to read it. This is a resolution to thank Renee Greff. Whereas Renee Greff has served with distinction on the Ann Arbor DDA board since 2000, including serving as chair in 2003-2004. Whereas Renee Greff brought great intelligence and careful deliberation to the discussion of important DDA projects, as well as a firm commitment to the values and mission of the DDA. Whereas Renee Greff's concern for the viability of unique independent businesses and their importance to the special quality and attractiveness of the downtown has been an important factor in the goals and achievements of the DDA over the past 8 years. Whereas Renee Greff was at the heart of the DDA's 2003 renewal process and brought new friends and supporters to champion the work of the DDA over the past several years, which have included such transformative projects as the 5th and Division Improvements Plan and expansive funding for a variety of new alternative transportation programs. Whereas Renee's passionate love for downtown and community is an inspiration to all who have had the good fortune to work beside her, resolved, the Ann Arbor Downtown Development Authority, on behalf of the downtown and the community, thanks Renee Greff for her great service and far-reaching contributions during her years on the DDA.
Come up and get
Yes. Is there any discussion on adopting this resolution?
I would just like to say we've already had one situation where a DDA board member has attempted to channel Renee during a discussion, and I can just hope that that will continue.
Further discussion?
I'd just like to say that I will miss your leadership and your willingness to say what you believe in the fight for the best part of downtown. And our loss is Ypsilanti's gain.
Yeah, true.
Jennifer?
Just also like to say that I will miss you a lot, and it's been great working with you for the last 3 years. And I do hope you visit us from time to time as a downtown business owner and speak during our audience participation to remind us of the things that are important to you. I will thank you.
Further discussion? All in favor of adopting the resolution, please say aye.
Aye.
It's unanimous. Subcommittee reports. First, the Transportation Committee, John Noah.
Thank you. And actually, Renee, while you're still here, the first thing related to the Transportation Committee is the work that Renee did in helping us get started with defining what our purpose is. You'll see on page 16 of your package an outline of what we've talked through so far. And if you take a look at that, you'll see that I think one of the important things that Renee brought to it is the idea of an organized approach with a statement of purpose, principles, which I think are very important. I know most of you were at these meetings, but a few weren't, so I appreciate it if you could take a second, look through those principles, because I think it's an important sort of guiding light to the work we're trying to do on that committee. The other things that we talked through as part of that process and what our purpose was to recognize that transportation is a continuum all the way from pedestrian on the sidewalk to large-scale public transportation. And that's been an interesting aspect of what we've been talking about, because one way to organize it is the concept of individual transportation, where somebody's sort of self-guided, if you will, one way or another, whether they're on foot or on a vehicle of some sort, versus group transportation. But that, as people pointed out at the last meeting, that there really is those boundaries may be blurred as time goes on. And so it's interesting, because how that impacts downtown will be significant in that there'll be an enrichment of how to get around, but there'll also be inevitably some conflicts between all these forms of transportation. Another item on there you'll see is clarifying short and long-term outcomes. And this is, how do we evaluate what we're doing when we start tackling a certain task? Have we succeeded or not? And that's something that Susan is going to take on is, how do we do measurables for this sort of thing? How do we see if we're succeeding in some of those things as we tackle them? The next item too is that idea of what is our role as a DDA? How much are we advocating? How much are we influencing other agencies? How much are we able to take on ourselves sort of single-handedly? So I think that's a key piece to this, because in the world of transportation, obviously, you're butting up against a lot of other folks who are doing many different things. Not to mention our own other committees, which is another thing that we've started talking about, is sort of what the role of this committee is in relation to other committees. Another very good part of that brainstorming session led by Renee was starting to talk about a few of those items, and in particular we talked about pedestrians and buses. And pedestrians are sort of the most obvious sort of thing that nobody really talks about or deals with in town. And so personally I think that's a fascinating part of this. The second part that we talked about in detail was buses, and it's timely with the new director at ATA, and we've continued some discussions about the link. So that, I think, gives you a basic rundown. We've looked at some next actions, which, as I mentioned, Susan's looking at some of the measurables, and we're sort of starting to kind of hone in on, what thing do we dive into specifically next. The next item I'd like to refer to is at the meeting, Nancy Shore did a nice job of giving us an update on Get Downtown. She's been getting survey results back. And some of those things, just as a quick sort of one-hitter, one of the questions on the survey was what would motivate you to continue to use sustainable transportation in the coming months. Some of those responses included higher gas prices, express buses, later bus schedules, live tracking of buses, faster, more frequent connection to park and ride lots, more frequent buses, nice weather, which we have today at least, better maintained sidewalks, train, express, bus. So you see a pattern, a lot about buses. Second question was, what would make it easier for you or your co-workers to walk, bus, or carpool to work? More frequent bus service, more bus stops near houses, better bike lanes, safe bike racks, 15-minute buses, Ipsy Ann Arbor Express bus, showers and places to change for cyclists, buses running longer on nights and weekends, more park and ride locations. So those were a couple of the key questions. Gives you a flavor for some of the responses, some of the things that we may want to start pondering as we move forward. A second thing that she brought to us were the results from a Get Downtown retreat with sort of a more focused group. A few of the items were increased awareness, and we've talked a bit about that in our committee, about communications. How do people really understand what's out there in various forms for getting downtown? We've talked about it, about the link in particular, for instance. Target outreach to employers, maximizing computer challenge opportunity, increase the value and desirability of the Go Pass. So those are some of the things that we're now kind of getting the folks from the outside starting to say that we can start taking into account. And then the last thing I want to touch on is the link discussion in particular. In the last month or so, there's been some response to the end of the link, or I shouldn't say the end of the link, the stalling of the link. The bus is stalled, that's the pause, there you go. And so we had quite a bit of discussion about that, what those responses are, what they mean. And I think even amongst committee members, we all have a little bit different perception of all those things, what the thing's trying to function as and the rest of it. So a couple of the results back, or a couple of the steps moving forward, were to ask Susan to look at that issue of communications. Who are the folks out there who need to understand more about what it can do and how does that work? And then the other piece that Joan had offered was to look to have U of M students get involved in doing a little bit of an analysis of how a system could work for moving people around downtown. And we need to find a little bit more about what from our perspective the goals are for establishing those routes or those functions. But that's sort of in a nutshell, I think, most of what we covered at that committee meeting. And I've got to say, I really appreciate the attendance. It's been fantastic at those meetings. I encourage folks to try to come. Those of you who aren't on that committee or aren't able to come, you'd be appreciated as we're in these formative stages. If you get a chance, come on down and we'll talk. That's it.
Your next committee meeting? I'm sorry. Go ahead.
I don't know. Maybe we can look it up.
Is in August, September 23rd.
Thanks.
I just want to comment on it. I'm really happy to see that the committee's really getting to work. One of the things that we should remember, because I think the DDA has obviously done a lot of good work in this area over the years, Ann Arbor is already a very highly rated community for the people who use transit and alternative means of transportation. Not just in buses, which is pretty good for a city our size, but just a few years ago when was it Prevention Magazine and the American Podiatric Association, I couldn't quite believe it, said we were the third best city to walk in the United States. Very highly rated as a bicycling community, although I think we still have a whole lot of work to do. But now the 2005 update of the census, the U.S. Census, puts us at number 10 in the whole nation in the number of people who walk and bike to their destination. So a lot of good work has been done. There's a lot to build on. Already one of the leading cities in the nation. And I'm just really happy to see all of this going into it. The other point is that the parking structure that is just being talked about right now, the U of M is going to build on Fuller, is the plan to go forward with that. Sits right on the east-west bike trail, the one that comes most predominantly in from Ypsilanti. It's probably the most heavily used bicycle corridor in the city. That is being planned with showers and possibly even a bike shop built into the parking structure. So that's our side of it. That's what we're hoping to get in there, and so there'll be a model there as we go down the road how that works. Because with 17,000 people coming to work at the hospital complex every day and 2 million visits a year, you can see how it would be very nice to have all of this in one package in that particular spot.
You don't really want all those sweaty, smelly people.
Particularly your doctor.
Yeah, that's right.
I know a lot of the doctors. But I just really appreciate the work this committee is doing, and if we can continue to build on all the work that's been done, there great things can happen.
Thank you. Russ?
Yeah, I too want to encourage that. And one of the things that I think gets lost, but there is a tremendous amount of information about, is data. I sat on a committee years ago where the link was getting set up, and it got pulled out to a dysfunctional level based on essentially politics. And I'm not talking about politicians, but just like community talk. And I think that it's very important, particularly in transportation, because there's a large amount of dollars and infrastructure that gets invested in that, to be very mindful of data. And the fact that we already are a very top-rated bicycle and walking community means that we've met with success there and probably can further meet with success based on data. And when it comes to our bus transportation, I think that, again, we're already a leader in so many ways with bus transportation, that I think that if we focus on how those professionals, those transportation professionals, advise us and the community, and if we support those professionals based on the legitimate data that they present, and not so much, well, I'd like the bus to go by my house or this particular store, then I think that we can continue to push towards that very leading edge of alternative transportation that we already are very strongly invested in. And we'll avoid some of these blind alleys that we sometimes go down because it feels good to talk about stuff rather than taking that feel-good part and processing it through the hard data that, again, the professionals, I think, can provide us.
Just want to add something to that, and what I really noticed out of the committee meeting was certain areas where there was definitely an emphasis to be proactive instead of reactive, and not in the proactive way that Russ is talking about, where say, wow, that sounds great, I live over there, let's bring the bus, but recognizing that the Get Downtown program by its very nature isn't just about getting people downtown, it's about how people use the downtown, and that includes not only the workers, but it includes the people that come down to shop, it includes the people that live here. And trying to explore that idea of, boy, if a stated goal is to bring more people living downtown, would it be nice to allow bus passes for them to move out to the malls or out to the things to do the basic functions that they can't meet by just existing in a 6-block radius, as few currently are lucky to do. So I really was encouraged by that kind of proactive approach of let's set up, instead of waiting until we have a problem, let's set up some exploration to allowing people that live downtown or use downtown differently than just commuting in. And I'd say the same thing for our conversations moving forward with the transit authorities about Ypsilanti. There's a generation of people that are using Ypsilanti very different than how we've, as a community, viewed it for the past 30 to 40 years. And when you go onto blogs and you talk to a lot of the young people that are coming in here and working, that's our affordable housing. And trying to work the conversation in that direction where, boy, wouldn't it be nice to have a direct service to Ypsilanti, much like we're establishing direct service to some of our other kind of outlying communities. That, I think, is, again, more of a proactive approach instead of a reactive approach. There are people that are living there that downtown is being revitalized, and it should take a lot less than almost an hour to get back and forth between the two communities by our bus system. So both of those were very promising and kind of rewarding, that weren't huge expenditures, weren't huge, let's take a leap of faith, but we're pushing us towards a lot of the goals that we as a community have recently been extolling as important to us.
Thank you. It's been pointed out to me that in my effort to break a record, I skipped an agenda item. So I think that before we go to operations, we will skip back to the status of the task force efforts with DDA membership and the A2D2 steering committee. Same guy, Roger.
Sure.
And as usual, Ray is stolen most of my thunder, but I'll give a quick update here. The steering committee met on August 11th and we are now working on the design guidelines. We reviewed a revised outline of the design guidelines. They originally were approximately 50 guidelines. They have cut those down to 28, organized them in a much more understandable form and an outline form, and highlighted the most important 10 guidelines. So I think we are on the path to a much more coherent and understandable document. I've just gotten a final draft over the weekend, and I'm going to be pouring through it this afternoon. There is a public open house tonight at Carytown Concert House at 7 o'clock, where the consultants will be there as well as the steering committee to go over any public questions about the design guidelines. And I believe then there is a working session with council on the 15th to review those, and they will then go to council, I believe it's October 19th, along with the second reading and public hearing of the rezoning. So on the 19th of October, the rezoning will have its second reading and a public hearing, and assuming that is adopted, then the design guidelines would be proposed and adopted after that. And if anyone would like the 60-page design guideline that I got this weekend, I'll be glad to forward a copy to anybody.
Thank you, Roger.
Sure.
Next, the committee to discuss a mutually beneficial financial agreement with the city. Sandy?
Nothing has been done.
All right. Thank you. Skipping back to the operations committee report, Roger Hewitt.
Okay. Fortunately, a short report today. We do not have the year-end financial statements today. We'll have those at the next meeting. With the change in management at Republic Parking, they don't have all the figures settled for the year-end statements. So we'll be giving that full financial report at the October board meeting. And again, will be for the fiscal year that just ended on June 30th. We asked staff to take a look at if the city did go ahead and approved a city income tax, what impact that would have on the DDA tax increment financing. If you look on page 18, there's a zillion figures here, and I'll try and get these down to a few short, easy ones. Right now, our tax increment financing, our TIF money, brings in approximately $3.9 million a year. Of that, about 600, and I'm looking in the column that is headed on the left side that said DDA value. Mm-hmm. If you go down to just above the dark horizontal line, that $680,000 is the amount that the school tax that we get that pays off a bond of that amount. That bond, I believe, will be paid off in 2012, at which time that tax money will go back to the schools and we will no longer be receiving that money. So that will bring our TIF money from 3.9 a year down to about 3.2 a year. Just below that is the amount of operating money, city operating money that we capture with our TIF, and it's just about $700,000. So if a city income tax were to go through, we would lose that $700,000, bringing our TIF down to approximately $2.5 million a year from what will be in 2012 about $3.2 million. This, of course, assumes that there's no change in the taxable value. That obviously does change every year, and very difficult to predict exactly where that's going, with property values falling in some areas, but also with some new buildings coming online. So we'll see where it is. But that gives an idea of what the impact of a city income tax would have on the DDA. Any questions?
Well, I did have a comment on that, just so that you were clear on the timing. For one thing, it wouldn't be at all. It's not at all clear whether City Council would vote to put that on the ballot. I've never been a proponent of a city income tax, and it would take, obviously it could be happening without my vote. The timing of that would be think what council would probably think about is the May election. So if the DDA were doing budgets, and then it would have to be approved by voters, it still wouldn't begin to do anything until you got into 2011. So there's a lot of time to think about this. You don't have to, I don't want anybody to worry about the 700,000 because it would be quite a ways down the road. So it's not a given that it would even be on the ballot. Certainly, I don't know that it would be supported, and if it were, nothing would happen with it until 2011.
Yeah, there were some questions about if it did, what would the impact be? So we're just trying to give people some data.
Understood that.
Okay. Any other questions?
It may be worth aggregating the projections for the tax basis. Many detailed ones have been done for the county budget, for the school budget, for the city budget. The Chamber of Commerce has seen all those budgets. They ran their own projections. Just for kind of, worst and best case scenario projections, that may have more of a immediate impact in the next 3 to 5 years on us than the taxes. So it may be worth aggregating those numbers for all of us to understand how these different agencies are looking at what, in many people's opinions, is likely to happen to commercial tax bases in downtown.
Yeah. And again, we get updates from the assessor as new buildings come on, and every year. But it's it's a new world out there, and it's hard to know exactly where we're going to end up. A few years from now. On page 19. We have just a summary of our revenues from Art Fair, and I was happy to report that the revenues this year were up 13% over the previous year. So I think I want to compliment Republic Parking on doing an excellent job of managing the parking during the Art Fair and bringing in more money than we have ever brought in during Art Fair. So thank them.
Is there any theories as to why it was up 13%? Volume or price increases?
My theory would be nice weather.
Yeah, the weather was great.
Volume.
I think volume primarily. I don't think were there any price increases in there? I didn't think so. So.
There's a huge increase at 4th and William. Is that due to the extra parking spaces that are there?
Yes.
Yeah.
The fact that they weren't closed.
And the increase at Ann Ashley, are there more spaces available there than there had been in the past with permits being moved or anything?
As you start filling up the central area, they start moving.
Okay, last on page 20, we'll just give an update on where we are on our transition to parking demand management. Back in February of 2008, staff came up with an 18-month plan to start implementing parking demand management, which is essentially putting, letting the supply and demand of the consumer help set prices. The first 18 months we have been dealing primarily with upgrading our technology to be able to shift into this system. Through software, accounts payable software, we're updating our API system. We've directed staff to come up with, now that we are completing this 18-month period, the plan for the next 18 months, which will undoubtedly involve some implementation of these plans, certainly on a pilot scale, on pilot programs, and as we go along and get more data, then we'll try to implement them on a broader base. We will be looking at doing some variable rate parking rates. John Moore and I had a discussion about how to bring the Transportation Committee in on looking at those rates and vetting those before we bring them forward to the board, and also talking about how we can get some community input on those before we propose those changes. But they will certainly be in the works in the next 18-month plan. A few details to update people on. We have decided after extensive testing not to go ahead with the magnetic stripe parking validation tickets. They have been an operational nightmare. We've checked with a couple other operators at U of M and also in Lincoln, Nebraska. They have had ongoing problems with those, so we're going to stay with the stick-on stamps that we've been using for years. One of the areas where new technology hasn't really proven successful. The AVA card pilot program has been quite successful, working quite well. We are going to look at start expanding that. A couple of places and things that we would need to do is either put in new equipment, automatic equipment, or I think we directed staff to, for the first year, instead of buying new equipment, to put in, just have cashiers at times when we would not normally have cashiers for this program, Sunday and after hours. See how it worked with people there, and then at some point perhaps move to a more automated system. So we're going to delay purchasing any new equipment and just use staff to begin with. We will be, at some point, setting things up so that the gate arms will be down on Sunday, although Sunday will still be free. Done some surveys, I think on the next page you can see how the exiting numbers on Sunday look, which is, you know, there are a lot of cars going in and out. We have met with the churches on their concerns, and we're going to be working closely with them as we implement this system, so we're sure that everybody that's using downtown on a Sunday realizes that all the gates may be down, the parking will still be free. But we need to put that into place in order to put the entire automated system in. Our e-park machines are working very well. I want to compliment both the staff and Republic Parking. This is, you know, really new technology, a whole new idea on how parking meters work, and it has gone off very, very well. We've done some surveys, and the responses have been over 75% positive to the new system. And a few minor glitches, but nothing significant. We are having a little trouble, the city enforcement staff is having a little trouble interconnecting with the new equipment, but we're working to iron those problems out. And we decided not to reinstate the Maynard Valet parking this fall. The concept behind that was that we'd be able to park more cars in the same amount of space, but it was never used at a high enough level to get any economies out of that, and indeed was a money loser, and we decided it just wasn't worth continuing an experiment that certainly hadn't been embraced when we first tried it last winter. And I think that's my report. If anyone has any questions.
I have a question about the discussion related to the valet, and it just reminded me why it was never tried during an evening time when there's also a high parking demand.
Yeah, the problem with doing it in an evening for a concert is that everybody wants to get there at the same time and everybody wants to leave at the same time, and you couldn't handle that volume. I mean, if 100 cars came in a half-hour period, it would just swamp the system. They would just backed up like crazy. There's just you'd have to put in a huge number of personnel and moving cars to different structures to try and handle a concert rush.
I can give you anecdotal data. We instituted a valet parking program at the Michigan Theater for a season subscription one year. Paid $400 and some odd for extra insurance. We parked 4 cars. We'd been better off and we discontinued it in the middle of the season and got no complaints. Valet systems work very well if people are used to it. And I think the only way to get a valet system to work is to do it for a sustained period of time and be willing to sustain the loss for a period of time until it became a customary pattern that people were willing to pay their $5 or $10 or whatever dollars to make it happen. So, not in a time of economic downturn, I think, is the time to do that.
Yeah.
Thanks.
Agree. Okay. That's my whole report.
Would you like to tell us when your next committee meeting is?
I'd be delighted to. It's Wednesday, September 30th at 11 a.m. That's next meeting.
Next is capital improvements. That would be me. I'm going to take advantage of Mike Ortley from Carl Walker being in town and ask him to come up to the podium and give us an update on the South Fifth Avenue underground parking garage.
Hi, I'm Mike Wardley with Carl Walker. Update. The design is continuing as planned for the underground garage. The construction manager has been selected for the pre-construction services, and they're on board working with the design team and the DDA. As planned, excavation support package and excavation, which is basically to dig the big hole, that's going to be going out this week for bids later this month, so we can start getting some numbers back. The plan, and as planned, is we're looking for a guaranteed maximum construction cost sometime by the end of this month, September, and then construction, actually the excavation support would be planned to begin in mid-October when we were starting to go down into the hole. And just to follow up a little bit on Mike Haller's comment, there is every intent that the packages for this project will be competitively bid, including and in particular the concrete, because the cast-in-place concrete will be one of the larger bid packages, and so it's in the best interest of the DDA and the city to have that competitively bid, and that's our intention.
Does anyone have any questions for Mike?
Would like to compliment the design team. I know we're putting a lot of pressure to keep the process moving at a good pace. Keeping things on schedule and getting ground starting construction in the middle of October. Compliment on everybody keeping that tight schedule.
Thank you.
Mike, I would just like to ask, I've read in the press about 3 times in the last month that we're not breaking ground on the structure until the spring, and I think the confusion there is that we were asked when's the last possible time that we can change column placement, etc. Can you give us a little bit of clarification on when that will actually take place?
Yeah.
What the date is?
Yeah, it's going to take several months to dig the hole, and so that's a fairly long process. And then once the hole gets completed or partially completed, the foundations will start to go in. And when the foundations start to go in, that's when we're going to need to have some pretty firm decisions on what's going up above, if anything. The design right now we've made several assumptions on what those loadings would be, and if we continue on as designed, we'll be fine based on those assumptions. If things need to be changed, it would probably be just like you said, spring, March, April, when we really need to get those decisions made. And I think we can probably give you a little better information on that next week with the schedule update. We're working on that right now with construction manager Christmas.
So you're saying the hole will be dug well before the spring, but the spring is a drop dead date in terms of final placements.
Yes, and what we'll do is as part of our schedule, we're moving towards a more aggressive scheduling as requested by the DDA, as well as now that we have a construction manager on board, we're going to have a little more detailed, aggressive scheduling that will take into account specific actions like that in the construction side. So we'll have some better input on that specific question next week, but it's in that range of spring.
Mike, and maybe it's Adrian, I'm not sure. The status of the dirt removal and taking it to the airport, is there any update on that?
That would be Adrian.
Is it Adrian?
Dirt manager. Adrian Iravada, Park Avenue Consultants. The status of the placement of the excavated materials, officially we received notification from the city that the airport was not a suitable site due to their intent to have an storm detention location. So we're pursuing other locations. We have talked to excavation companies to see if somebody would be interested in taking those soils. We're also interested in having a recycling of the excavated materials. We're talking with concrete manufacturers, providing them the soil analysis. So it's an ongoing. We're hoping that by the end of the month, we'll have a better answer and we can present it to you.
Newcomb.
Follow up on that. Any interest from the Parks Department? I know that there's plans for West Park and they're going to need a lot of dirt out there.
We have made that available to staff. We haven't heard any formal responses, but now that we have specific dates and times, we're going to push it a bit harder to have a formal reply in volumes and locations and destinations.
Thank you. Any other questions for either Michael or Adrian?
I'd add a follow-up for Mike, sorry. Just in clarification of this drop-dead date, a lot of effort and thought is being put in the design of the structure that there is going to be as maximum amount of flexibility as is possible for whatever may come over the deck. I don't want us to kind of get into a language trap where we're saying that we have to know exactly what's going to happen by this drop-dead date or nothing can be built over.
Right. It's certainly not exact. I mean, there's I would definitely say there's not a infinite possibilities of what can go above. Just with physics, we can't make that happen. But we have a well-defined grid system and a well-defined loading system for a particular building size, building footprint, loading that would be typical in a building that would be used in this area. So that information, basically the assumptions we've provided that we've used. So there is quite a bit of flexibility. We've done studies on stair tower locations, how they can move within a grid. Obviously, you can't just say a stair tower can go anywhere from the building up above because it would fall in the middle of a parking area. So there has to be a certain amount of definition with the maximum amount of flexibility, and I think we've achieved that. So hopefully that will address your question.
Yeah, there's plenty of examples where this has been done, and maybe it doesn't work out perfectly. Maybe you have 2 elevator cores, but at the end of the day, we're not closing any doors on any sort of possibility. We actually intended to design something that would leave as many doors open as possible.
Right, and they are open. I think that's been a main goal of the DDA, to make sure that we didn't close doors.
Thank you, Mike.
Thank you.
Other projects that the committee is overseeing, the water main replacement on 5th and Division, we still do not have a contractor to do that work. We are hoping to have someone on board very shortly and for that work to begin in the next couple of weeks. Phase 1 of 5th and Division project, Eastman is out there right now, East Lund, it's East Lund, correct? East Lund is out there right now pouring concrete as we speak. And that work will continue through the end of the construction season. Wayfinding, I'm sure that all of us have seen the signs starting to pop up around downtown. We would expect that the rest of the downtown signs will be installed in the next couple of weeks. The signs out by the expressway, the MDOT signs, we took a while to get MDOT approval, and we're delayed there a bit. So those signs are going to be going up within the month, probably by the end of October. The system will be complete, and I'm sure there's going to be some fine-tuning to the system after everything is up, but I have to say that in the end I think we're going to have a very good-looking and very functional wayfinding system. Are there any questions?
I have a question on the wayfinding.
Yes.
I've seen a couple of signs that have the 4 panels with just only one identifier. Are they going to come back and add to that, or is that by design?
That is by design. The signs have a standard form as a template. So in some cases, in some locations, we may only need one of, say, the 4 panels that are on there. It's part of our quest in designing it, sort of going back a step to the earlier project, to have maximum flexibility. So as an example, if a panel has only one thing on it, down the road there could be, say, a new court police building at the City Hall building, and then you could add that in one of those blank panel areas. So the intent is to have these signs serve flexibly into the future.
Have you gotten feedback from the public one way or the other?
My favorite bit of feedback happened just at the beginning of the meeting. One of the participants here, one of the people here visiting us, an audience member made the point that they make really lovely bike parking spaces. It just so happen to have information at the top. No, it's been pretty overwhelmingly positive. People are very pleased with the quality of the fabrication. I think people are very pleased that the project is happening at all. And I have heard almost completely very positive comments.
Russ?
Thank you.
Yes, to that end, I was stopped by one of the local design professionals that helped us convene the meeting of local design professionals that were concerned about the signage. And he was extremely positive and thought that they turned out very, very well, better than they thought. And he even relayed the positive opinion of one of the most vocally concerned folks. So, hooray. And I would like to note that the Capital Improvements Committee stole the wayfinding from partnership. So, just
we were going to wait to see how it was received and then either take credit or give it to Ron. But yeah, in the end, I think that in the process did go through some ups and downs, but I think in the end we got a very, very good design.
Yeah, and I was collared unsolicited about this and given this positive feedback. So I think it was very genuine and hooray.
Hooray. Our next committee meeting, and this is a change, is going to be next Tuesday, September 8th at 11, and I would expect that the Capital Improvements Committee will be meeting more frequently than just once a month for the next couple of months. So, and future meetings will be set at this next meeting. Finally, partnerships, the duo.
We've been on summer vacation.
Hiatus. I think the most important thing for us to report is that to live to the full intent of partnership committee, we will continue to be co-chairs. And I think that there's a certain kind of artistic unity to that.
Absolutely.
Besides the excellent facts.
So do you want the first bullet then?
Yeah,
okay.
Sure. We will be furthering the energy saving grant program that has been ongoing for the last 2 years, and we'll be considering that at our next meeting. And that new application program will begin at the end of this month on September 30th.
Just actually, for those that are in the home audience, applications are due for September 30th.
Right.
Yes.
I'm sorry.
And
we include Susan as part of the partnership.
Good thing.
Experience.
And inspired by the process of the Transportation Committee and what they've undergone, and kind of the effects of merging ROC and partnership, we would like to take a little bit of time at the next few partnership meetings and talk about how we can best utilize those that we've asked to come to the table. So we've got somebody from planning, and we've got city council members, and we've got DDA members there, and we've got so many. We've kind of become the catch-all committee for things. So we kind of want to say, well, why have we brought these folks together, and how can we benefit most from having these great minds and the synergy that happens with it? So it's going to be. I don't want to use the word retreat because Russ doesn't really care for that, but we're going to be having a bigger dialogue about what it is that we expect our partnership committee to gain from having these folks together. And I'm also going to ask for one item to be on our agenda for sure for next week, which would be September 8th, 9th at 9 a.m. And I've been intrigued by a project for local currency, and I'd like have some ideas that I want to throw out in partnerships to do some investigation of that.
Is that true? We are meeting at 9 on 999?
Ooh.
Oh.
Wow. Okay. That is true.
Wow.
That's it.
Are there other DDA business matters? Is there anyone else in the audience who would like to speak to the board? Would somebody like to move to adjourn? Roger?
Everybody.
Seconded by Keith. All in favor? Aye. We are adjourned.
Dearly recommend.
What is the record?
Oh, thank you.
John, what is the
I think I set the
I
record
don't,
earlier today.
I don't think
Well, that was 2 meetings, but average out at half an hour.